All right, welcome everybody to a very special edition of Take the Black. We're here with noted stage, screen, TV actor and man with hair I'm quite frankly jealous of, Ben Barnes. Ben, how are you?
What's up, man? Hey, thanks for having me on. Well, you got that Billy Russo hair. Second season, I like it.
Yeah, I like to keep it short and
I miss it. It's so easy.
Yeah. Get out of the shower. It's done drying by the time I brush my teeth. So
yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks for taking the time. I know everything's kind of up in the air right now, so we definitely appreciate you taking some time out for us.
Yeah, well, I'm grateful to have something to do, something to look forward to. It's nice.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and obviously here at WIC, we cover any kind of fantasy, sci-fi, all the comic book stuff. So a lot of your roles kind of fell under what we normally cover. So I was super excited to talk. But
yeah, it was funny. At one point on my IMDb, it used to say like my name and, your height and your age. And then like trivia, often lives in a fantasy world or something like that. And I was like, oh, it's pretty accurate.
Yeah. But those are the most fun. You get the best costumes, all the toys, all that good stuff.
Well, it's just the escapism as well. Just when I was a kid, I loved all the quest stuff and all the sci-fi and quest basically were the things that I loved when I was a kid. But, you get the toys. I have the worst toy out of any actor of all time. I don't know if you've ever seen the Prince Caspian action figure.
I haven't seen the action figure, no.
It is the worst action figure that's ever been made of anyone ever. If you're watching this and that sparks your interest, Google it. It doesn't look anything like me. It looks like a 5-year-old made it.
Well, at least it got an action figure though.
That is true. But it's like my life quest now to do something else where I get an action figure because I have to fix it.
You can't let that be the only one.
I have to make up for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Otherwise on my IMDb, it will say trivia has the worst action figure of all time. And then I can't have that.
Hey, but IMDb is self-edited, man. So there you go. Just hop on there and
I don't know. I wouldn't have the first clue where to start with that. Someone else will have to do it for me.
But speaking of Prince Caspian, that was your first, kind of major role that you had. So what do you remember? But obviously it was kind of a long time ago. What do you remember most?
Yeah, I mean, well, my first ever film job was also fantasy, which was Stardust. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just had like a small role in that, but that was like a really good. Way in for me, like a really gentle introduction to like those big worlds. Yeah. And luckily in that, my character just had to go around looking at everything like that, just like, so that was pretty easy for me to do at the time.
Yeah. And so on Caspian, obviously play Prince Caspian, what do you remember about those films? Because obviously with Prince Caspian, I'm losing my memory on the second one, but on Prince Caspian, you were the title character and a pretty big part of that film.
Yeah, no, well, but both the second and third, I was in sort of the whole thing, and it was pretty magical experiences, to be honest. I was doing like stage work in London, and I'd done like a few days on films here and there, but never really anything where it was sort of your full-time job. And then to sort of fly out to New Zealand and do all the horse training and the sword training and the stunts and I was working with like a dialect coach, and sort of meeting all the cast, and I'd seen the first film. So to me, these kids were just those kids. Right. And it was just as a sort of life adventure, which I think is, just as important as kind of what you end up making in the end in terms of the experience of what you put into it. And they were just incredible from that point of view. Like we started in New Zealand and then we ended up shooting the rest of it in Prague in Europe, and they built these castles. And I remember thinking, I was only cast 2 months ago. This must have taken 6 months to build. It must have. They built a whole castle. And I just remember thinking how staggering staggering a job this can be, and how important it is to like retain that sort of childlike wonder about how you approach doing the job, because that's how I watch stuff, and that's how people, that's how people interpret, I think, what you're doing, especially if it's in like a sci-fi fantasy kind of realm. You want to be taken away on a spaceship, or taken away on a, on that kind of journey. You want to put the ring on and disappear,
Yeah, absolutely. And another character you played that was complete opposite of Caspian, obviously, was Logan Delos on Westworld. And speaking of getting away and being transported to some fantasy worlds, obviously that show centers on going to a series of fictional parks. But what do you? I mean, it's interesting because Logan. He's not Logan. I'm sorry. He starts as carefree and very hedonistic, and he's just it's about the money and what he can get out of it. And then when it's William kind of transplants him, it shatters his whole world. So how much did you enjoy kind of that journey of the character from season 1 to 2?
Well, I firstly, I had no idea. We had no idea we were going to do more than just season 1. That was the deal. Was we would Jimmy and I, plays William, younger William. We were going to do 1 season, so it was going to be this carefree douchebag. Yeah, that I was drawing on every douchebag I'd ever met, and trying to make him kind of. But those douchebags who really enjoy being douchebags. And I think that I had the most fun of everyone on that whole show, because everyone's wrestling with these existential crises of what does it mean, and am I real? And I'm sitting there going, who cares?
Yeah,
just have a nice time. And so I really enjoyed, I think, you start to sort of be imbued with a little bit of the characters that you're playing. And so while I was shooting that, I was just sort of living life and thinking, isn't life amazing? Let's just enjoy this, and let's have a good time. And so it was a sort of good time to be alive when I was sort of shooting that. But then it was it felt like a real privilege to be asked back for season 2, when that wasn't necessarily the plan, but also to be asked to do almost the complete opposite of what you were doing in the first season, to have found this sort of slightly darker, soulful quality somewhere in there, and sort of start to, and what you long for as an actor when you read a script or something is to be shown the journey, and to be shown how they got where they got to. And that's you thought of your job is to, like, even if you don't say it in the story, to show people why you've ended up where you've ended up. And I think that giving me those scenes in season 2 to do that was like a real privilege, to be able to go, like, to flip from between before what we saw in season 1 and then after what you saw in season 1 was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny you bring up that you were the only person who had fun on set. Have you ever watched Succession on HBO?
Oh, I love it. I honestly think it's like maybe the best cast on TV. I just think that everyone is so perfectly cast in that show.
Yeah, absolutely. And they have a podcast that's out now with each one of the cast members, and it's interesting because when they had Jeremy Strong on, who obviously plays Kendall, he was talking about how everybody else on set gets to have a lot of fun, and he's always in this sort of existential.
Oh, Kieran Culkin is having the most fun of anyone on TV right now.
Yeah, and exactly.
It was a sort of a similar thing. It's just sort of being given the freedom to be really kind of, I would call it like to be naughty,
right? Like
with your choices, to be able to like walk out of the saloon scratching your balls if you want to, and no one's going to go, what is he doing? Because you can do whatever, you have that freedom.
Right. Yeah. And Kieran said a similar thing too, that he said his only problem was when he gets off set after filming is done, he has to dial it back down because with the same.
He's got to stop swearing and
yeah. So
just drinking for breakfast and
Yep, absolutely. So and obviously, Westworld it's a very heavy show, and there's a huge amount of plot going on. And you kind of touched on it a second ago. Initially, you guys thought it was only a season one thing. How much did each of you kind of know? I mean, obviously you have access to the scripts, but how much did y'all know about the overall, plot as it was going on? Did you guys understand it?
We didn't always have the scripts, to be honest. We in season one, I used to get the scripts like 2 weeks before we would film that episode. I would get the scripts, and then Rachel Wood, who plays Dolores, who would know a little bit more about what was going on because she would talk to the showrunners. She would like sneak me secret information, and I'd be like, "What? Really? They're a robot? Shit." So that would be fun. On season two, we were shooting everything completely out of order, and I was kind of doing some other stuff at the time. So I didn't even get any scripts at all in season two. I only got the pages that I shot.
Right.
So when I got the pages for what I do in the finale episode, when I become like that sort of Siri, like my dad has made me this sort of gatekeeper of the system. I had no idea what was going on, and I was supposed to shoot it like the next day, and I had to call like Lisa and Jonah, our showrunners, and be like, what is this?
What's been going on?
What am I doing? No context, please.
Yeah. I imagine that's kind of hard to play when you don't know. I know some actors have talked about they don't want to know what's going on outside their characters because that can kind of mess with their motivations, but still you have to have some idea what's going on, which obviously on Westworld can be kind of difficult.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's your job to when the cameras roll to like switch off everything and just be as present as you can, and that's not easy to do in life, especially now. Let alone to do it on a set. It's not the easiest job in the world. But I think I personally like to have as much context as possible because it gives me things to kind of that I can sew in or think about or whatever. I like to be trusted with that stuff, but a lot of people don't, like you say.
Yeah, just a preference. But so especially with everything like you mentioned, everything going on right now, is there a park that you'd want to go to if it was real? You want to go to Westworld? You want to go to the medieval land? Whatever.
Where would I go? I just want to go. I wouldn't go and run in the ocean. Waterworld, maybe Waterworld. Oh no, that's like very dystopic, isn't it? That's like
yes. You don't want to go to Waterworld.
Dry land. Where do they get to at the end? They find dry land, right?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be Mount Everest is where they land.
Yeah. Okay. I want to go to dry land at the end of Waterworld. Just on an island. Just leave me alone. Yeah.
There you go. That's a good choice. And one of the other shows, obviously that we covered pretty big was The Punisher on Netflix.
Oh, cool.
And I thought it was kind of interesting because I see some similarities between the two characters, between Billy Russo and Logan Delos, but
they both had that like narcissistic quality, but for very different reasons.
Yeah, different reasons, but they also, they start kind of they kind of go down a path where, in the first season, Billy Russo is the kind of suave and he's the businessman and he's trying to put one over on everybody. And then in season two, his whole world is kind of shattered, kind of similar to Logan. And so I thought it was interesting. Did you see any similarities between the two characters when you're playing them?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, the sort of that narcissistic quality, one of them because he's felt completely unloved by, by a father who holds him to, what he feels are impossible standards, and it just feels like he's never been noticed, and sort of turns to, eventually sort of just turns to drugs to sort of escape his life, which is kind of sad, but he's acting out to get attention. And I think with Billy Russo, it's not really about attention, but he also feels unloved. He's had a mother who was, a drug addict as well. And so he's felt abandoned. And then you find out in the second season, or in the first season actually as well, but a little bit more in the second season that he's been abused as a kid, and so he is broke. You know, he feels broken and let down by his family, let down by the system, and all that stuff. So I mean, I love it when like those characters who seemingly are sort of just out and out douchebags. I wouldn't say that Logan is a villain. Obviously, I think Billy Russo is like more of a villain because there's some psychopathy about the way he behaves. He's broken.
Right.
But I wanted to play him very much in the second season as, you know, it would have been very easy to make him kind of arch and vengeful. I wanted to make him broken.
Right.
So I wanted to kind of show some of that vulnerability, because I think that, you know, if you can play a murderous asshole and still have people when your character dies go, oh,
right,
then that's, to me, that's interesting, because I think everyone has everything in them already. So we're all, you know, we're all these, like a bit like those tablets in Westworld where you dial up the charisma and you dial down the vulnerability and you dial up the anxiety and you dial down this. You know, we've all got all of those. We've all got all of those dials in us. So it's just a question of choosing what you're willing to show, like we do in real life. And that's the part of this whole thing, this whole sort of, you know, job and career, which interests me.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you brought up that you wanted to make Billy vulnerable, because, you know, heading into season 2, it was interesting because I think most people assumed, okay, Billy, he's the villain. We're not going to have any sympathy for him. You know, this guy killed Frank's family, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought it was very interesting that as the season went on, I was feeling sympathy for the character, you know, and they played it so well where, you know, you didn't really know at first, is he faking the memory loss, or is it genuine? And I loved how there was, you know, when he did finally have that confrontation with Frank, with the Punisher in the street, that scene that you have where you realize that's who is causing all your trauma.
And the camera goes around me.
Yes. And I just love that scene. And then the following scene, when you go back to, I'm forgetting, Dumont.
Krista,
yeah, to her apartment, and you're having like a breakdown.
That's actually my favorite scene I think I've ever shot. So I'm really like, I'm chuffed that you pulled that one out, because I thought it was interesting. Like, I remember shooting season 1, the big carousel fight at the end. And I remember talking to the showrunner about what we were going to do. And I was like, yeah, if he can't remember anything, then you get to have him think he's a good guy, which is so much more interesting than having someone think they're a villain, because then it's hard to justify. And then I remember him calling me, our showrunner, before we start the second season. I said, my only thing that I want is that this memory loss is real. I just don't want it to be a facade. Yeah. It's got to be a real thing that you know, and he can remember things, but it can't be fraud, because you can't cheat the audience, because no one wants to be cheated like that. And so that was kind of important to me, to have him be, you know, because he obviously tells a lot of lies, but just to have him be kind of honest in his approach was like kind of important to me as a sort of starting point. And because then I have the opportunity to, like, you know, if it says he screams and throws a chair in the scene, I can just sit in the corner and cry. And if it says he sits in the corner and cries, I can scream and throw a chair. Like, anything is then possible.
Right. Yeah, no. And I mean, kudos to you for making that a point, because I was definitely in the first couple episodes worried that it was just going to be a facade, and it was, you know, oh, haha, I was kidding, I don't have memory loss. And it definitely played more powerful to have that be genuine.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad that scene in the, I also, by the way, would have much preferred it if the facial scarring and stuff had been much worse. I really was pushing for them. I was like, put more, just 3 more, just like a big one, like over my eye, pull my eye down or something. And they were just not having it. So that was the only like disappointment about that. Cause then you would have been like, cause it would have then been harder empathize with him, but also you would have felt more sorry for him too. So it would have been an interesting. I would have liked to have seen what that would have done. He would have been scarier as well, you know.
Yeah, his scarring. I think I did comment when I was reviewing it that it did seem kind of superficial considering how much of a beating.
Well, yeah, they were saying like, oh, we want it in the modern world, and obviously with plastic surgery and stuff, it was clean cuts from glass, and they did chart each scar from each hit and stuff, but like. I was just like, yeah, but mangled is fun.
Yeah. No, I think I agree with you. It would have been a little bit more.
Some people did some like some of those like amazing like online digital artists and stuff did some mock-ups of just like pushing it a little bit further, and some of them were just like so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely would have elicited a little bit more, maybe not sympathy, but maybe you would kind of understand his rage and his pain a little bit more, because
I think it would have pushed both ways. He would have come across as a bit more gruesome and sort of frightening, but also a little bit more of a figure of sorrow. So yeah, it would have been interesting. But I think it also like the way it was explained to me was that actually the scarring and the damage was in here.
Yeah, and
that also was a very interesting prospect for me.
Yeah.
Because it meant that I was trying really hard to show that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like a nice challenge as well.
Well, and it was also interesting. I thought that the show, it really delved into, some moral gray areas, especially between you and Frank, that were kind of surprising for maybe, because the Punisher is supposed to be super violent and maybe not necessarily the most cerebral show. And so I love the comparisons they made between yourself and the Punisher, Jon Bernthal's character. So,
and I love his ruthlessness at the end. You switch places and you think I'm gonna, with my sort of dying breaths, you think I'm going to try and make things right. And he's like, I don't have time for this. I'm the Punisher. You know what I mean? This is too hard for me. I can't watch this. You should always be able to read things more than one way, I think,
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to ask what you thought about that scene, because I think it also kind of went against some, tropes or whatever you want to call it, where he'd have a big speech and maybe they have a reconciliation or something, something going on, but Frank just walks up and,
actually the original version of that scene was even shorter. He just sort of walked in and I didn't even get a chance to say anything at all. And I was like, no, it would be great if he started to say something. I was thinking, I pitched it a bit like Lost in Translation at the end. I was like, he starts to say something, but you're not quite sure what he would have said, but then you get to put your stamp on it. You get to be involved. You get to be part of, you get to proactively watch and be involved, invested. And I love when TV makes me feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what was sharing, obviously you and Bernthal, Jon shared, quite a few scenes. What was it like having him as a scene partner for?
Yeah, I mean, I wish we both of us always wished and bemoaned the fact that we didn't get more, because we really only got 2 scenes and a fight in the first season and just 2 or 3 scenes in the second season where we're actually in the same room, because our creator and showrunner kept explaining that the more I put you in a room together, the more I have to explain why you're not just killing each other.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you can't just keep coming up with reasons. And I was, I remember in between the seasons, it was like, when we were talking about season 3, before I knew I was for it, I was like, well, maybe, I could be captured and then he could be captured and we could be opposite sides of a prison and we have to like eventually get together to like figure it out. And then we can't kill each other, but I was like, anything, just anything. To like actually have scenes where we can be in the same room without killing each other. But, yeah, he's an amazing guy, and he's just a charismatic kind of leader figure. Just anyway, he's just a very kind of alpha, charming, funny, straight shooting guy, and I would have I would love to. I keep looking for things that we could do together, where we can actually have some more scenes together, because
Be in
I
the
love
same
doing
room.
it with him.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought his casting was, when it was announced, was pretty spot on. So
Yeah, he was perfect.
I was pretty sad that they kind of kicked all those Marvel shows off Netflix, and it was kind of a sad thing to see, because some of them were
Some of them are great.
some of them were just great, and I really, like I said, I loved how Punisher kind of played with a lot of the tropes and was a lot more cerebral than you might have thought it would be, considering the source material. So, is there anybody?
I told you my first ever job was Stardust, which obviously Charlie Cox whose Daredevil was my son. He's my son in it. So,
oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. So whenever I turn up to shoot in New York, when I shot the Punisher, and I was like, I'd be like, son. He'd be like, father.
That's awesome. And is there anybody else that maybe you would have, not just on the Punisher, but is there anybody, throughout your career that you wish you would have had more scenes with? Or
most people, to be honest. I've had so much time. I mean, I did a film which is a very, very, very bad film called The Big Wedding, which is not fancy, and it's not sci-fi or anything. It's a sort of comedy, but the cast was just incredible. It was De Niro and Susan Sarandon and Diane Keaton and Katherine Heigl. It was amazing. Amanda Seyfried, amazing cast, and I had like two or three scenes with De Niro, and I had 2 scenes with Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those 2 in particular, just to have those little tastes of working with some of the the greatest of all time, and it felt like a bit like a dream, and it went too fast, and I regret how fast that felt.
Yeah,
that it went. But but I have had the privilege of working with some of my favorites like Colin Firth and Jeff Bridges and some of these amazing, Oscar-winning, brilliant people. And I've done, I've spent, long doing big, long movies and jobs with them, and learned a huge amount and enjoyed them a huge amount. And so yeah, I've been pretty lucky, to be honest.
Have any of them ever given you not really pointers, but maybe more just kind of advice that maybe stuck with you?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Bridges used to tell me about how he would prepare for scenes, and how he would sort of prepare for scenes like 3 different ways, and then just sort of throw it all out the window, which was like really interesting. I remember him saying like, "You're my apprentice in the movie, so going to be my apprentice in real life." And when he was doing his apprentice voice.
Yeah.
And then Colin Firth would be much more cutthroat. He'd be like, "Well, you're not going to be interesting till you're 40, so just calm down." He would just be sort of more like that. So yeah, I've had angels and devils all the way through to kind of ushering me along.
Yeah, but you want to take the advice, a little advice from both.
Exactly.
That's what keeps it. That's what keeps it interesting.
I think I just tell people to try and enjoy it, because it's short.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fleeting. It's fleeting.
And I was when I was going through your IMDb list, like we talked about earlier, I was not aware how much of a musical background you had. From the soundtracks to just I think I read about the Eurovision stuff and things like that. So how much do you enjoy that versus acting? Because they're both kind of obviously a performing art. So how much do you enjoy that versus acting?
I mean, music was sort of my first love, really. When I was in high school, I was playing in jazz bands and singing in jazz bands and playing drums, and my first ever job was playing drums in a production of Bugsy Malone in the West End in London. It was like a jazz musical for kids. And, I love all kinds of music, and I've done some terrible stuff, and I've done some stuff that I'm proud of. And I've done a few musical movies like Killing Bono.
Right.
you know, obviously recorded the whole soundtrack for that, and Easy Virtue I've sung on, and Jackie and Ryan is probably one of the jobs I'm proudest of in my life, and that's, you know, there's a whole soundtrack of that I got to be involved with and sing on and play on. And yeah, I'm yet to make any music of kind of my own, but it does take up a lot of my spare time when I'm just for myself. You know, it feels like something sort of, you know, precious I keep for myself. And then people were like, you should just do more stuff, just like, even if it's just on Instagram or whatever. So I've tried in the last year or two to do a bit more of that. And, you know, eventually it would be cool to like make some music, you know, before I'm 50, you know.
Or before you're at 40, like Colin said.
I better hurry up with that one.
Do you have a preferred, I mean, you spoke about jazz, and obviously the Jackie and Ryan is kind of a little bit more
folksy,
bluegrass, folksy. Do you have kind of a preferred, you know, if you were going to make
my draw has always been to like the like more soulful stuff. Like my dad had this record collection, which was just all like Beatles and the Stones and Zeppelin and the Who and you know, all these kind of amazing rock bands. And I would gravitate towards the back of his collection, the unloved, you know, the kind of the Stevie Wonder stuff and you know, even some of the more soulful like Queen albums and stuff like that. And then I sort of found my way through to a lot of the like, you know, Aretha Franklin's and the Donny Hathaways and all that kind of stuff. Like quite young, like 16, I was like really into like, you know, Tamla Motown and Stax and all that stuff, and I still love that kind of stuff. But I love all kinds of music. But so long as it has a little bit of I think a little bit like my taste in scripts too. So long as it has like a little bit of a sort of soulful, not sensitive, a sentimental, you know, kind of power to it. It's just, that's what I tend to gravitate towards in life. People too. Yeah,
absolutely. No, I was listening to the Jackie and Ryan soundtrack. I like that quite a bit.
Oh, cool.
That's kind of in my wheelhouse, especially here. Austin's got a real kind of eclectic, music scene. So there's a lot of stuff like that going on.
I actually have a funny story about that, which was that I did this mini series for the History Channel called The Sons of Liberty, which was kind of like a kind of a cool young take on you know, Boston Tea Party and the American Revolution and the Declaration of Independence and all that stuff. And I'd finished shooting Jackie and Ryan, but they wanted to record 2 songs for the end credits.
Mm-hmm.
And they organized it to record these songs in a busted up, dilapidated studio where we were filming outside. We were filming outside at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I was dressed as Sam Adams. And it was like 3 a.m. I had a break, or 2 a.m. I had a break for lunch. And I got on one of the like golf, you know, those little golf carts, and they drove me to the other end of the studio, which was completely like run down, like nobody in it, completely dark. I was like walking through these corridors, and eventually I found this recording studio where this one guy was sitting who didn't speak English. And we recorded these 2 songs for Jackie and Ryan whilst I'm dressed as Sam Adams, like the ponytail and the hat and everything. So that was like pretty surreal and weird to like trying to record those songs in that situation. You know, we were in Bucharest in Romania.
Gotcha. Well, that'd be for an interesting musical video.
Yeah, so true.
So I know, you know, kind of your upcoming projects. You've got a central role in the Shadow and Bone series that's coming out on Netflix.
Yeah.
Without, you know, revealing any spoilers, what can you tell us about your character on the show?
Yeah, not very much. I mean, obviously the books. There's a trilogy of books called the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and then there's a duology called the Six of Crows, which is sort of set a few years later. And we've for the sake of the you know, the show and being a full, rich, deep, exciting world, they're sort of drawing from both sets of books.
Mm-hmm.
So we can have all of the characters together, which is it's pretty cool. And I play this character who we're calling General Kirigan, but he's actually, if you know the books, he is the character of the Darkling.
Mm-hmm.
He's the they have this order of magic, people who have extraordinary magical abilities called the Grisha, and he is the leader of the Grisha army.
Mm-hmm.
He's their general. So he's basically the most powerful, character in this universe as we meet him.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty exciting sort of universe, because the way we've kind of drawn from all these books, it kind of has elements of Harry Potter with the different orders that people are grouped into by color, where but then it also has kind of this quest element, like a kind of Lord of the Rings kind of chosen one element, but then it's kind of this Russian Anna Karenina, and then the Six of Crows has more of a Peaky Blinders heisty vibe to it. So it really does have all of those things kind of like molded together, something that feels a bit, I think it feels quite different and interesting, and I'm excited for people to see it.
And have you heard anything about, I know it was kind of originally supposed to come out, I think sometime later this year, but with COVID going on and post-production kind of being.
Yeah, I don't actually know when it's going to come out, but I hope, I hope sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, just a couple more questions, but with the way Hollywood works with remakes and reboots and all kinds of things going on, is there any of the fantasy sci-fi worlds that you'd love to be a part of? You want to be cast young Luke Skywalker, or anything out there that you just would jump to have?
I'm a pretty excitable fanboy in terms of like movies and TV shows, to be honest. Like everything I watch, I'm like, what could I be in this? What can I be in this world? It's like when you're a kid, when I have a picture of me like dressed as a cowboy when I'm like 3, and then I have a picture of me dressed as Batman when I'm 4. There's always something.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I would do that.
Yeah.
So it's everything really. I don't know. I feel like it would be more fun to like poll like a community like yours and be like, well, what would other people want to see me do? That's actually more interesting to me than like,
yeah, choosing
what I would want to get into, because I just I want to be involved. I want to be involved with everything.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much, there's so much going on nowadays, with all the different streaming platforms. I mean, everything.
But I think having played like a couple of quite untrustworthy, nefarious, maybe even villainous, psychopathic kind of characters in a row, it'd be nice to see, what I could now bring, having done that for 5-6 years, what I would bring to a more, traditionally empathetic character, to like a more of a hero figure, even if there's, because I've been playing these dark characters and trying to find the light and vulnerability. So it'd be nice to play like a light heroic character and try and find the dark in them. You know what I mean? That would be cool.
Yeah. Flip it around just a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's pretty much all I got for you. Other than Shadow and Bone, what else you got going on? Where can people see you coming up soon?
Yeah, that's kind of it right now. It's a huge, big show with, kind of massive world building and effects and, characters and stuff. So we were shooting it kind of most of last year. So we're just like putting the final touches on it. So hopefully not too long before we can see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we definitely thank you for the time. We'll see if we can't have you back on whenever Shadow and Bone comes out, and we can actually talk about it.
Sounds good. I'll get some of the other cast on too. We can do a little group thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, definitely thank you for the time, and we'll talk to you soon. Good luck, everything going on.
Thank you.